Hello, everyone. My name is Tiah Tomlin-Harris, Community Advisory Board Member for the Bench to Community Initiative and CEO and co-founder of My Style Matters, a nonprofit organization that is based in Atlanta, Georgia, that supports breast cancer survivors and helps women and teen girls make healthier and safer choices. Welcome to today's Salon Conversations. Will MoCRA fix our 80-plus year broken cosmetic safety law? I am your host and moderator for today's discussion. Thank you for joining us today. And for those of you who may not know, Salon Conversations is a community forum where we bring awareness, educate, and provide actionable steps towards sustainable change about various topics related to breast health, reducing exposures to endocrine disrupting chemicals, and more. This forum is a part of the Bench to Community Initiative, led by Community Advisory Board members like myself, Bing Turner, Maggie Hawkins, Pastor Rhonda Holbert, Tanya Fairley, and Dr. Dede Tate Brooks, who's an assistant professor of public health at Chapman University. You can watch previous Salon Conversation episodes on YouTube at Bench2Community. The Bench to Community Initiative is a multidisciplinary collaboration between community stakeholders and scientists to better understand the relationship between harmful chemical exposures from personal care products and breast cancer risks. For more information about the Bench to Community Initiative, visit bench2community.org or follow our journey on social media at Bench2Community using the number 2. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker for today's discussion. Senior Director of Program and Policy from Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, Janet Nudelman. Janet draws on 30 years of experience working in the social change arena as a political organizer and lobbyist on women's health issues to create and oversee Breast Cancer Prevention Partners' cutting-edge policy initiatives and market-based campaigns. Previously, she served as the political director at Credo Mobile, formerly Working Assets, and legislative assistant for Representative Louise Slaughter. Janet has an MA in public policy from George Washington University. We would like to welcome you, Janet.
Thank you, Tiah. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank Dede. And I want to thank Abigail, and I'd love to thank all of you from the Bench to Community for welcoming me back. I think this is my third or my fourth presentation to this wonderful group, and I have to tell you, this is one of my most favorite out of all of the public speaking that I do. So thanks so much for welcoming me back. So I'm going to set my timer because I always have a lot to say when I start speaking. So here we go. I'm going to dive in. Next slide, please. So I was invited here today to speak with you about MoCRA, the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act of 2022, the Federal Cosmetic Safety Landscape, and Breast Cancer Prevention Partners Non-Toxic Black Beauty Project. So I'm going to try to address all three of those topics today. But first, I want to introduce you to the two hats that I'm wearing. I am the Senior Director of Program and Policy at BCPP. We are the only national breast cancer organization focused solely on preventing breast cancer by identifying and eliminating the environmental links to the disease. And when we say environmental links, we mean chemicals that are linked to breast cancer that are present in the consumer products that we use, beauty and personal care products, cleaning products, toys, building materials, carpets, textiles, furniture, chemicals linked to breast cancer that are present in our workplaces and our communities, and also in commerce writ large. I'm also the director of our Campaign for Safe Cosmetics. And the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics has been around since 2004. We're actually getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary next month. And we're all about raising consumer awareness about the presence of toxic chemicals in the beauty and personal care products that we use every day, and increasing consumer demand for safer products, and then growing the marketplace of safer products in the process of doing so. Next slide, please. So over the past 15 years, BCPP has been really successful in doing our work. And we do our work in really 3 different ways. We advocate for safer laws at the state and the federal level. And we do that so that everyone's protected from toxic chemicals, regardless of where they live, where they shop, or where they work. And we tend to create models here in California because as the 3rd largest economy in the world, the laws that we enact here serve as de facto laws of the land. And that's really important when you've got a dysfunctional Congress that doesn't tend to get a lot done. We've enacted 15 laws in the last decade and a half, which is pretty impressive for an organization of our size. And we've been successful in getting, for example, the entire class of perfluorinated chemicals banned from firefighter foam, food packaging, textiles, and cosmetics. We've got phthalates banned from kids' toys at the state and the federal level, BPA banned from baby bottles and sippy cups at the state and the federal level. And we've also been successful in getting 24 of the worst chemicals banned from cosmetics here in California. We also work on getting ingredients better disclosed, because while we want chemicals banned, when we can get chemicals banned from consumer products, sometimes the best we can do is get chemicals better disclosed so that consumers can make more informed choices about the products that they buy. So here in California, we've been successful in getting laws enacted that have forced the disclosure of the ingredients in professional beauty and in professional salon products that are used in nail salons, beauty salons, and hair salons, in cleaning products, and then also the fragrance chemicals in beauty and personal care products. Next slide, please. So the other way that we do our work is we beat up on the big multinational cosmetic companies to encourage them to make safer products. Because for the last 80 years, the $100 billion cosmetics companies have been regulated by about 2 pages of federal law. So it's been a wild west in terms of cosmetic safety regulation. And they have been able to make and sell cosmetic products with cancer-causing chemicals, chemicals linked to reproductive harm, endocrine disruption, and lots of other problematic health concerns. So we've run these big market campaigns and have been successful in getting, for example, as you can see from this slide, the big nail polish companies to remove the toxic trio from nail products. That's formaldehyde, dibutyl phthalate, and toluene. We've been successful in driving triclosan out of the big multinationals' use. We've been successful in getting 3 of the big multinationals to voluntarily disclose their secret fragrance ingredients. Let's see, what are some other examples? And recently, working with Black Women for Wellness, we were successful in getting Johnson & Johnson to voluntarily stop selling its talc-based baby powder because of concerns around the asbestos cancer link in their talc-based baby powder. Next slide, please. So those are some examples of the way we do our work. So why do we do this work? Next slide, please. Quite simply because everyone's been touched by breast cancer. And you know this better than anyone because so many of you are living with breast cancer or have experienced breast cancer yourself. And of course, the work that you're doing is all about preventing breast cancer and raising awareness about and better understanding breast cancer. So this is a slide, of course, that talks about the prevalence of breast cancer and the disproportionate impact that Black women experience breast cancer. And this is a really important slide because we're trying to better understand why is it that Black women experience breast cancer less, but are dying from it more. Next slide, please. So again, a big part of our work is looking at where chemicals linked to breast cancer are. And what we're finding is that they're everywhere. Chemicals linked to breast cancer are in air pollution, land pollution, water pollution, consumer products, personal care, cleaning products, toys, etc. And also, up until a short while ago, the best known cause of breast cancer was ionizing radiation. So every time women go for their mammograms, they were actually exposing themselves to the best known cause of breast cancer, as well as every time they were going to get an X-ray for a broken bone or, even for a dental exam. Now, there are other known causes, of course, of breast cancer, including alcohol consumption. Next slide, please. So what's really disturbing is not only the prevalence of chemicals linked to breast cancer around us, but also the fact that these chemicals are not effectively regulated at the federal level or disclosed. What we know is that the federal regulation of chemicals is both siloed and it's ineffective. And this slide shows the extent of how ineffective that federal regulation is. It's a slide that talks about the federal regulation of phthalates, and phthalates are a family of endocrine disrupting compounds that are linked to breast cancer. They're regulated as a Prop 65 carcinogen and reproductive toxicant. They're linked not only to breast cancer, but numerous other cancers and other adverse health effects. At the federal level, they're banned from toys, but they're present in shower curtains, food can linings, nail polish, fragrances, vinyl flooring, IV tubing. So this is really crazy, right? And that's because the federal agencies regulate chemicals not by the toxicity of the chemical itself, but by how they're used. So what that means is, for example, the FDA will regulate phthalates in cosmetics, but the Consumer Product Safety Commission regulates phthalates in toys. And the EPA regulates phthalates in pesticides or in, what's another example? Let's see, in disinfectants. And OSHA will regulate phthalates in industrial cleaning products. And when the EPA comes out with, for example, a safety plan on the use of phthalates, they would not necessarily share that safety plan with the other federal agencies. Next slide, please. So this brings us to our conversation about the federal cosmetic safety policy landscape. For the last 20 years, the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics has been working with environmental health and justice organizations, clean cosmetics companies, and hundreds of thousands of consumers to shift the market to persuade cosmetics companies to voluntarily remove chemicals linked to cancer, birth defects, reproductive harm, endocrine disruption, and other adverse health effects from their products. By increasing consumer demand and awareness about these problems, and again, consumer demand for safer products. And we've been really successful in increasing the clean cosmetics industry from what was a $3 billion industry when we first started doing this work to a $15 billion industry today. So that's some really important advocacy that we've accomplished. But our end game has always been to secure stricter federal regulation of the $100 billion self-regulated cosmetics industry, again, so that everyone will be protected from those toxic chemicals, regardless of where they live. Next slide, please. And so 2 years ago, we were successful in doing exactly that. The 80-year paradigm of a self-regulated $100 billion cosmetics industry shifted when the U.S. Congress enacted MoCRA, which is the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulations Act of 2022, and President Biden signed that bill into law. And that was in December of 2022. That bill was tucked into a $1.4 trillion spending bill, which was 4,155 pages long. Very few members of Congress even read that massive spending bill. This new cosmetic safety law added 36 pages of new statutory authority to the 2 pages of federal law that previously existed. So that's really good. There were a lot of good things that were accomplished by MoCRA, including, for the first time ever, the Food and Drug Administration has the authority to recall unsafe cosmetic products from store shelves. And this is the same authority that it currently has for food and drugs and medical devices, but not for cosmetics. For the first time ever, cosmetic facilities or cosmetic companies have to register their facilities, their products, and their ingredients with the FDA. And they have to tell the FDA what the ingredients are in their fragrance formulations. And these fragrance formulations have always been kept secret from everyone, including the FDA. And this is really important because lots of toxic ingredients, including hormone disrupting chemicals, can hide in fragrance formulations. So this is something we advocated for very strongly. For the first time ever, the ingredients in professional salon products will have to show up on product labels. And this was a very important worker right to know protection that the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics advocated for. For the first time ever, companies will have to report serious adverse events related to their products. So when you use a product, if your hair falls out, if you get a serious rash, if you fall down dead, if a really serious health concern happens as a result of you using a product, the company has to tell the FDA within 15 days. That was never the case before. And this, of course, is a really important change. So all of this is really important. And these are things that we've been advocating for the past 15 years. However, there were some really serious problems and holes that were created with MoCRA as well. And I'm going to tell you about a few of them. One big problem was a weak safety standard that was enacted within MoCRA that basically takes a step backwards. It actually creates a weaker safety standard than what currently exists for both food as well as for color cosmetics. a safety standard that the FDA had been using for the past 50 years. The other thing is that the FDA was directed to assess the safety of the 10,000 perfluorinated chemicals, the PFAS chemicals that make up the class of PFAS chemicals. And this is a real problem as well. Next slide, please. The other thing, and this is what we are really, just seriously making our heads explode, is that there was nothing in the new law that gives the FDA additional authority to investigate or ban toxic chemicals. And this is a real problem because in the 80-year history of the FDA, they've only ever banned 11 chemicals out of the 10,000 chemicals used in cosmetics, compared to 2,400 chemicals banned by the EU. I don't know why this slide says 1,800, but the EU has banned 2,400 chemicals. And what I want to say is the EU adopted their cosmetics directive in 2004. And between 2004 and today, 20 years later, that number increased from 1,800 to 2,400 chemicals banned by the EU. And between that same period, the FDA has restricted two additional chemicals. So that shows you the stark contrast between what's going on in the EU versus what's going on here in the United States. And that's a real problem because that's what folks care about the most. And that is whether or not their products are safe. And MoCRA didn't change that at all. The other thing that MoCRA did do that's really problematic, next slide, please, is it preempted the states in 8 different ways. What preempt means is that it prohibits the states from legislating on cosmetic safety in 8 different ways. And this is a real problem. And this is what the big cosmetic associations, trade associations wanted. They wanted to pass a weak cosmetic safety law in terms of ingredient safety, and then tell the states that they couldn't do anything else in terms of ingredient safety. But the good news is that we were able to create a carve-out within MoCRA that protected the ability of the states to ban toxic chemicals. So while the states are not allowed to pass laws that have to do with good manufacturing practices, mandatory recalls, adverse event reporting, safety substantiation, etc., the states can ban toxic chemicals. Next slide, please. And so that's what the states are doing. In 2023, Washington and Oregon took a class-based approach to banning toxic chemicals in cosmetics. They banned the entire class of perfluorinated chemicals. They banned all of the formaldehyde-releasing preservatives. They banned the orthophthalates, triclosan, lead, and they banned a number of chemicals already banned by the European Union and banned in California and Maryland. And you can see the short list of chemicals there. So they were like, you know, okay, we can ban chemicals, that's what we're going to do. And in 2024, 15 states are planning to also introduce bills to ban toxic chemicals from cosmetics. And this is a whole coordinated effort that's taking place. And as you can see, 5 states have already banned the entire class of perfluorinated chemicals from cosmetics as well. Next slide, please. Tiah, I know I'm already at 20 minutes. Should I just speed through and take another 5, or what should I do?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right,
Thank
I'll
you.
move.
This is great information, by the way. Thank you. Keep going.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry I'm going over a little bit, but I'll speed it up. So I talked about the good things that MoCRA does, and I want to be clear that MoCRA does a lot of good things, and the success of MoCRA was in no small part because of the advocacy of consumers like all of you, NGOs, clean cosmetics companies. It really took a movement to make MoCRA happen, but there's still more that needs to be done. And so the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics has worked with a number of really wonderful members of Congress to introduce what we're calling the Safer Beauty Bill package. And it's a package of 5 bills that are intending to fill gaps in cosmetic safety that MoCRA did not address, that impact everyone, but particularly women of color. And in a nutshell, what the 5 bills do is ban the worst of the worst chemicals, require the disclosure of fragrance and flavor ingredients, protect women of color and salon workers, require supply chain transparency, and then ban the entire class of, perfluorinated chemicals from cosmetics. Those are the PFAS chemicals that I mentioned that 5 states have already banned. Next slide, please. So, lots and lots of things going on at the federal level in terms of legislation and legislative advocacy. However, this is a problem that the market needs to address as well, because it's not just a concern that legislators need to address. It's a problem that cosmetic companies need to address as well. And the reason why is because Black women are being marketed some of the most toxic beauty and personal care products on the market today. And this is a real problem because Black women buy more beauty products per capita than any other demographic, spending $7.5 billion on beauty products every year and 9 times more on hair care products than any other demographic. This is a real problem. And what the science is showing us, and we've done a review of the scientific literature, is those beauty and personal care products contain a whole range of toxic chemicals linked to all kinds of cancers, adverse health effects that are disproportionately impacting Black women, like uterine fibroids, breast, ovarian, and uterine cancer, infertility, maternal health concerns, endometriosis, etc. Next slide, please. And there's a number of different reasons for this. The toxic chemicals present in Black beauty products help some of these products do their job, like hair relaxers and hair straighteners. And that makes sense, but why are these products being so aggressively marketed to Black women to begin with, right? Like, that's the question that we need to start with. And the answer is because beauty standards celebrate fair skin, light skin, white skin, European facial features and hair textures and body types. And those standards reinforce structural racism. And they're rooted in sexism and Eurocentric beauty norms and racialized beauty standards. And these are things I know that you all know and discuss all the time but it's a real problem, and it's worth talking about as much as we can, so more and more people understand that that's what's driving the marketing of these products. Next slide, please. And it's also what's driving the long-term consequences that these chemical exposures are having on the health and well-being of Black women. So the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics decided they wanted to do something about this problem, the overexposure that Black women were experiencing to the toxic chemicals in the toxic products that were being marketed to them, and the clear lack of legislative and market response and accountability and responsibility that anyone was taking for this problem. Next slide, please. So we recruited a 20-member advisory committee made up of some of the leading scientists and nonprofit organizations working to improve Black women's health. And you can see some of the leaders working with you, Tiah and Dede and Dr. Astrid Williams, that are working with us as well. And they've been helping to lead our project over the last 4 years. Next slide, please. And the project has some very, very basic goals. And I want to tell you about the goals. And the first goal is to raise awareness about the problem, because you can't do anything about a problem that people aren't aware of, right? You've got to start it at the beginning and raise awareness about the problem that toxic chemicals exist in the beauty and personal care products that are being marketed to Black women and girls. And not just raise awareness about the problem to the population that are being marketed these products, but also the manufacturers that are making the products and the retailers that are selling the products. Next slide, please. And our next goal is to get safer products into the hands of Black women and girls, because it's not just about telling Black women and girls what they shouldn't be using, but also helping to guide and direct them toward safer products themselves. And so what we've done over the last 4 years is to create a list of, we're calling this a red list of do not use chemicals of concern in Black beauty products that we're giving to Black-owned beauty companies to help them create safer products. And we've created a list of non-toxic Black-owned beauty brands so that Black women can shop with confidence, knowing that they're buying safer products. We've actually made this first list available of 80 safer Black-owned beauty brands on a database. And the next slide will show you a little bit more. Well, actually, why don't you go to the next slide? We've made this list available to women on a database that you can search by product, by company name, by type of product like shampoo or lotion, or product category like hair care products or body care products or makeup, by price point, or by the population that you're wanting to shop for. So by teens or men or women, baby, etc. And we're getting ready to release our second ever list. And the first list had 80 Black-owned beauty brands on it. And the second list is going to be even bigger. So our goal was to get these products into the hands of Black women and girls, to make it easier for them to shop for non-toxic products. And can you move to the next slide, please? Oh, why don't you go back? I'm sorry, to the previous slide. Let's see, I'll go forward. Okay, well, I'll tell you what the last goal was, to actually grow the Black beauty industry. And this is really important because we want to support Black-owned companies. So companies that are owned by Black people, not by the big multinationals who are marketing to Black people, but companies that are owned by Black people, marketing to Black people, and then helping those companies make safer products. And that's a really important goal. So we've been providing technical support to those companies to help them make non-toxic products. And that's a whole process in and of itself as well. Next slide. And so this is the last goal of the project, and that's to provide Black women with resources and information that they can trust that will empower them to make safer choices. And you can see some of the resources that we've created include tip cards and fact sheets and info cards. Next slide, please. We have blogs, we have reports, we have lots of information that people can find on our website. Next slide, please, which is www.safecosmetics.org. And this is a really lovely, I do encourage you to go to our website because we've created all of these videos where the CEOs of these companies, many of whom are Black women, have created videos talking about their inspiration for creating their companies, why they do what they do. And it's just really lovely. Many of them are breast cancer survivors themselves, you know, but when they talk about where their inspiration comes from, it's really nice. And I think you'll be really moved by their stories. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that talks about some of the organizations that we work closely with and we trust. And I hope you will visit their websites. You can learn from them as well. Cleary has a wonderful tool for learning more about the safety of the ingredients in the products that you use. Next slide, please. This is a slide about the kinds of things you can do on a personal level to detox the products that you use. I encourage you to only patronize companies that fully disclose their fragrance ingredients, research the products that you use, read labels, become a smart shopper. Next slide. But at the end of the day, we can't shop our way out of the problem. And everyone needs to get involved to change the system so that we're all protected. Again, regardless of where we live or where we shop or where we work. So I do hope that you will visit our websites and our action centers and take action to support the bills that we're working on so that we can change the system so that everyone, in fact, is protected from these toxic chemicals. Next slide, please. And I invite you to stay in touch because you're doing great work. And I just really love your program. So thank you for inviting me to be here today. And I'm really sorry that I went over, but I've enjoyed speaking with you.
No need to apologize. Listen, this was so great. And I learned something new from you every single time I hear you talk. Thank you, Janet. This was very, very informative. I mean, $7.5 billion spent by Black women in the cosmetic industry. And knowing that we are being exposed to some of the most harmful products. I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done. And thank you for all of the work that you've done with MoCRA. We got a long ways to go, but this is a start. And so this is wonderful. Janet, we're going to bring you back on because we have some great questions that have come through. So Janet, you know, you again have given us some great information. And speaking of information, we've seen different numbers kind of floating around. We've seen 1,500, 1,800, 2,400 chemicals that was banned in the European Union. Can you give us some kind of reference so that we can make sure that we're staying on track with what the true number is this day and time?
Yeah, I am. And it's interesting. I'm sorry that I was adding to the confusion. And it's because there's chemicals that are banned and there's also chemicals that are restricted. And that's why the two different numbers, show up differently. But it is 2,400 chemicals that are banned by the European Union. And their cosmetics directive came at the same time that our campaign for safe cosmetics was launched. And it actually had a lot to do with the launching of the campaign, because we were looking and seeing that the European Union had this huge cosmetics directive and nothing going on in the US, and wondering why, and seeking the same sort of regulation and reform here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. You were talking about earlier, speaking of banned chemicals, we were talking about the campaign that you did and kind of reaching out to the different companies that have created products. Now we need to get on the bandwagon with Miss Knowles herself, Miss Knowles Carter, I should say, Beyonce. She has her new product line out called Secret, and hopefully there's no secret with her product line. But we definitely need to get her involved, because we know that a lot of the young girls are actually using these products, especially when it's coming from celebrities. So again, speaking of responsibility and talking about these companies, corporations, what's the responsibility of manufacturers regarding the safety of their ingredients in our cosmetic products?
Yeah, so that is such a good question. And this is something that was really disappointing about MoCRA as well. So what MoCRA does is it requires companies to assess the safety of all of the ingredients in their products, which is a good thing, but it doesn't give the FDA the authority to inspect the records that they keep regarding those safety assessments. And the FDA does have the authority to conduct these record inspections for everything else that companies do. So it's kind of suspicious that particular set of record inspections was left off. And we think that it wasn't accidental. The trade association for the cosmetics industry is called the Personal Care Products Council, and they were involved very heavily in lobbying for MoCRA. And they didn't want the FDA to have that authority to check up on companies. So like, it's kind of like a parent not being able to check the homework of their kid. The kid does the homework, but if no one's checking, like, how do you know if it's actually done or turned in or accurate? And that's, what's happening now with these safety assessments.
Yeah, and that's so unfortunate. I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry, so of course I'm very familiar with the regulations and regulatory authorities and some of that. And we talk about our skin being the largest organ, right? And yet we're putting all of these products on us, not knowing, what's happening to our bodies. Thank God for people like you and your organization and Bench to Community and the work that Dr. Day and her team is doing. It's helping to get this messaging out. So we're talking about the FDA and the regulations. We're now seeing all of these products, being that people are getting more educated. We have this term that's posted on a lot of the labels that we're seeing called organic, right? Or clean or natural. So how does the FDA actually regulate the use of this term organic or clean or natural or clean beauty in the cosmetic labeling?
Yeah, so they don't at all. So those terms mean nothing. Natural, clean, safe, even non-toxic, which is a word we use a lot. They're marketing terms that have no legal meaning at all. So when you see those words, you should just know that they're marketing terms. And even the word organic is not a word that the FDA regulates. It's a word that the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, regulates for food. So if a cosmetic company is using food grade ingredients like lavender, or like, what else would you use that's like food? Because some companies
Peppermint, yeah.
Yeah, right. Peppermint for astringents or things like that. They can get those ingredients actually certified by by the USDA, but they're only actually certifying the organic, nature of those food grade ingredients, like not the organics. They're not certifying the organic, nature of the product itself.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to get into what can we do to take action? I was happy to see that some bills are going to be submitted for, different states this year. I think it was 15 states in Georgia. Woohoo! We were on that list. I'm
Right.
so excited about that. But what can we do? All of these people who are on the call today, people who will be listening to the recording, what role can we take to help raise more awareness about the importance of MoCRA and then its implications for cosmetic safety or any of the other bills that's going to be pushed out in the various states? What can we do?
Yeah, so there's three things well, actually four, as I'm thinking, I'm I'm thinking of more and more.
And I hope
So
people are
what
taking notes.
okay. So one thing is to tell your favorite cosmetic company that you care about this issue. And like not in a mean way, like we're really happy to beat up on the big multinationals. Like when we run a market campaign against like Johnson and Johnson or Estee Lauder, like we're pretty aggressive in our campaigning. Our non-toxic Black beauty company or campaign is not about beating up on the Black-owned beauty companies. We're helping them. We're providing technical support. And it's not about them making them feel bad. It's about pointing them in the direction of resources to help them do better. And we'd love for you to help them, to tell them, you want them to do better. Because they need to understand that their consumer base wants them to do better, because they're not even concerned. All of them are not even concerned necessarily that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. And that's what my first slide was really trying to communicate, is until people understand there's a problem, you can't even get to the next stage. Like even like you're here on this call, but how many of your friends necessarily even understand that there's a problem that needs to be addressed? So that's the first step from a consumer perspective. And from a business perspective, is people have to, I know this sounds weird, but they have to drink the Kool-Aid, right? They have to agree there's a problem that needs to be addressed. The second thing you had asked Tiah about, like the Beyoncés and like we tested like Rihanna, Lady Gaga, J-Lo, they all have their signature scents, fragrances, cosmetic lines. Like they're awful, like they're full of bad stuff. And we want to run these market-based campaigns and tell them they should be selling clean products. We're actually honoring Issa Rae's line, because she and her sister-in-law have a clean Black-owned beauty line that they're selling, and they've made it onto our list of non-toxic Black beauty brands. So patronize the good guys is what I'd like to say. Help support the federal bills that that I've talked about today. And then Day was saying you might want to come to Sacramento with us to help advocate for some of the bills that we're championing this year as well in Sacramento. So if that's something you're interested in, maybe we could schedule a follow-up call and I could tell you more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then same thing within our own states, how do we continue to spread this message? Well, listen, Janet, I know we're running out of our time. I just want to say thank you so much. Again, this was so impactful. And for those who are on the call, I want to say thank you for joining today's Salon Conversations. We hope that you really enjoyed the session and that the information shared today can further help you in your own health journey and your friends. So be sure to spread the information, share the word, post on social media, share our posts, bench to community, connect with us. It's important. If you're a certified health education specialist and you have questions about the CHED's continuing education credits for attending today's session, be sure to contact Dr. Tate Brooks via email. And her email will be posted in the chat, but for those who are tuning in, her email is Teteh, Teteh, @Chapman.edu. Stay connected with us. Again, follow the Bench to Community Initiative's journey on social media and sign up for the email listserv to be notified of the next Salon Conversations episode. You will also receive resources and information about breast health and reducing exposures to endocrine disrupting chemicals via the newsletter on a monthly basis. Our chat moderator is currently adding the link for you to join our listserv in the Zoom chat, so please be sure to check that. And again, we just want to say thank you so much. Stay tuned, stay connected to us, and share this information on social media. Share one thing on social media that you learned today, and be sure to tag Bench to Community. I want to say thank you again, everyone, and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you.